Every great story needs a dramatic beginning, and Rome's is one of the most famous in all of history. The tale starts not with senators or armies, but with two baby boys, Romulus and Remus. They were twins, born into a royal family but cast out to die. A wicked uncle feared they would one day challenge his power, so he ordered them to be thrown into the Tiber River. But fate, or perhaps the gods, had a different plan. The basket carrying the infants did not sink. Instead, it washed ashore at the base of a hill. There, a she-wolf discovered them. She did not harm the boys. Instead, she cared for them as her own cubs, nursing them until a kind shepherd found them and took them in. They were a people saved by a miracle, protected by the gods, and connected to the wild forces of nature. Romulus and Remus grew up to be strong and natural leaders, but they were also hot-headed and ambitious. When they decided to build a city on the very hills where they had been saved, they argued fiercely. Who would be king? Which hill would be the center of their new home? To settle the dispute, they looked for a sign from the gods. Romulus saw 12 vultures, Remus saw only 6. Romulus claimed victory and began building his city's walls on the Palatine Hill. The argument, however, was far from over. In a fit of jealous rage, Remus mocked his brother's new wall, leaping over it to show how weak it was. This act of disrespect infuriated Romulus. He struck his brother down, declaring, "So perish all who ever leap over my walls." After Romulus, Rome was ruled by a series of 6 more kings. The Roman kingdom lasted for over 200 years. It was a time of slow but steady growth. The city began as huts on the Palatine Hill, then expanded across the 7 hills of Rome. Each king left his mark. They built temples, they established religious customs, they organized the first Roman army, they created the first senate, elders from noble families, the patricians. The king consulted the senate, but he held ultimate power. Life for most Romans was simple, focused on farming and family. Most people were plebeians, commoners. They worked the land. They raised their children. They served as soldiers when called to war. The king was absolute ruler. He was the head of the army. He was the chief priest. He was the supreme judge. His power was symbolized by the fasces, a bundle of rods with an axe, carried by his guards, the lictors. Some kings, like the Tarquins, were Etruscans who brought new ideas and technology. They drained the marshes to make the Forum and built the Cloaca Maxima, parts of which still work today. Resentment finally boiled over under Rome's 7th and final king, Lucius Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud. He lived up to his name, ruling as a tyrant, ignoring the Senate and treating the Roman people with contempt. He used violence and fear, executing senators and forcing citizens into hard labor for his monuments. He embodied arrogance, cruelty, and disregard for Roman tradition. The city was a powder keg, waiting for a spark. While the army was away, the king's son, Sextus Tarquinius, assaulted the virtuous Lucretia. Devastated, she summoned her husband and father and made them swear to avenge her, then took her own life. Lucius Junius Brutus seized the moment. He carried Lucretia's body to the Forum and showed it to the horrified crowds, condemning the king's son and the monarchy that enabled such injustice. Rome erupted. The people closed the city gates and banished the Tarquins. The era of monarchy, after 244 years, was over. The Romans chose to take their destiny into their own hands. With the king gone, the Romans faced a critical question. What comes next? They had rejected monarchy but needed a system to govern. They vowed no single person would hold absolute power again. They created a res publica, a public affair, a public matter. It's where we get the word republic. The state belonged to the people, not to a king. Power would be shared and accountable. Instead of a lifelong king, 2 consuls would lead. Elected annually, they served only 1 year. Each could veto or block the other. They commanded the army and served as chief judges, but with limits. The Senate gained immense power, its members holding seats for life. They controlled finances, debated laws, and guided foreign policy. Checks and balances bound action to council. Brutus himself was elected consul. The journey from the mythical founding of Rome to the birth of the Republic was long and transformative. It began with Romulus, a story of divine destiny and fierce independence. Over 2 centuries of kings, Rome grew from a village into a powerful city. The kings laid foundations with great projects and the creation of the Senate. But tyranny taught the danger of unchecked power. Tarquin and Lucretia became defining warnings. Romans chose liberty as their most precious possession. A hatred of monarchy shaped their identity. In 509 BCE, they created a republic, not just new leaders, a new ideology, shared power, elected officials, and the rule of law. Consuls, an empowered senate, and annual elections unleashed Rome's energy. From legend to kingdom to republic, duty, patriotism, justice, and suspicion of absolute power defined them. The Republic gave stability, a framework for conquest and expansion across the Mediterranean to build one of history's greatest empires. Rome rose because its people overthrew a king,